is Gabby. I'm an apparel technical designer, and I have a background of about 15 years fitting men's, women's, kids, juniors, all categories, ready to wear for some of America's largest retailers. I'm here today because I want to show you how I have pinned and marked my custom Beatrice form. I've been lucky enough to work with Allison and Nathan at Beatrice as part of their early supporter program to test out one of these bad boys. So I thought that what I was doing might be helpful for you guys and maybe make your lives a little bit easier, and so show you kind of what my shortcuts are and how I plan on using my form. I've kind of nicknamed her my doppelgabby because she is basically me. So I'm going to show you basically what I used and how I did it. So I have taken 1/4 inch black twill tape, draping tape. You can get this at Amazon or any kind of sewing store. I use this whenever I'm draping, mostly to mark my style lines. So you'll see here, I didn't use it all over. What I've actually done is the points that I know will never change, I'm going to mark with pins so that way I can feel them underneath my garments as I'm putting them on the form. And then any kind of thing that's going to change, I'll use the style tape for, because that way I can just rip it off when I'm done, move it around, whatever I need to do. So that being said, I have pinned and marked the right side of my girl already. It's a little bit hard to see because the pins that I like to use for this purpose are just these regular silk pins with a small silver head. But for our video today, I'm going to use these matte pins with a colored ball so you guys can kind of see a little bit better what I'm doing. So let's get started. Basically what I have done here is taken a look at her and kind of figured out what do I want to see on my form and what kind of things do I want to fit. So I'm imagining that I'm probably at some point going to want to fit something fitted and not nearly as loose and summery as a caftan all the time, although I'm going to make that Charlie caftan one of these days. So what I think I'm going to do here, and what I actually have done, is I've taken a 1/4 inch elastic and used that to mark my underbust here. And you'll see because the cover of the form is fabric and removable, which is amazing. It means you can take it off, mark it, embroider a tattoo on it if you want to, kind of make it your own, which is awesome. The only issue with that is that your side seams for the whole cover might not necessarily sit where you would want a side seam to be. So I found it's a little bit hard for me personally to kind of mess with the form because the cover will grab onto the foam. So for things that I know are not going to change, I'd rather just mark them with pins and have done with it, because it just takes way too much time to move those seams the way that I want them to be. Okay, so because, that long-winded explanation here, I put the elastic here because I'm so super curvy that I was finding that the cover of the form is not sitting exactly as flush to the form as I wanted it to. So by putting the elastic here, it holds it to the form. So you're probably going to want to do that at your underbust, your center front, and your center back. So I'll show you what I did for that. All right, so the very first point that I always mark is the waist. This is just a good general reference point for anything that you might be working on. So I put this at where I think my natural waist is, which is usually your narrowest point. If it's not your narrowest point, you can put your hands to your sides, kind of wiggle back and forth a little bit, and that bend point, that's your natural waist. So this can be anywhere from 1/2 inch to 3 inches above your belly button. So I wouldn't use your belly button as a marking point for this. So I have taken this tape and just kind of gone all the way around, clipped it and pinned right at the front. Easy as pie. So then what I want to do is I'm going to try to remember to do this, start at the top and work my way down and kind of show you how I marked everything. And I'll do front and then I'll do the back. So basically the very first thing that I pinned here is my high point shoulder. So this point is basically like the golden triangle of all points whenever you're checking a garment or you want to check a pattern. This point will kind of inform the way that any of your garments will hang or their balance. So how to find this point is it's right at the center of your shoulder where it meets your neck. So I've put a pin here, and then what I'm going to do is pin on the other side so you can see. So I'm going towards the center, and sometimes your seams on your cover might line up, and that's great if they do. I think this side is actually okay, but see how mine like kind of pulls to the front a little bit? I'll show you a trick for that in a minute. Okay, so there's my high point shoulder, and then I'm just going to go ahead and mark the curve of my neck all the way down and around the base of the neck. So this I'm probably not going to use very often. Maybe if I'm doing a woven shirt or something like that, or outerwear. But for now, like if you wanted to do a sloper, this is going to give you a really nice jewel neckline or a crew neck. So here's my neckline shape here. And then from this point, what I did, because I am an anal retentive maniac, I have taken my tape measure and starting at the neck point, at the center front neck, and basically all the way down the body, I have placed a pin at every inch. So you don't have to do that. You can actually use elastic for this as well if you want to hold your cover to your form. I would just put enough pins in it so it holds it down. The reason that I put the pins in this kind of crazy way is because I want to be able to use them as reference points. So for example, if I'm draping and I need to adjust an en-pied seam or something, I could say, well, you know, so here's my underbust, right? So I'm going to move it up an inch. And I'll know that because my pins are exactly an inch apart. So that said, the next thing that I'm going to do, and this is for all you technical designers or pattern makers out there, I have marked from my high point shoulder my across front at 5.5 inches down with pins, and I'm going to do this on the other side so you can see. So here she is, and then once I have my armhole picked out with the pins, I'll be able to easily check my cross chest here and make sure that any of my patterns are matching up to that, or, you know, I can build in the proper amount of ease or get like a really good armhole shape. So that's that. And then next thing, and I'm going to do this with my style tape again here, is because my Princess is great for fitting. It's an excellent fitting tool, but it is also a style line. You can start it at your shoulder, you can start it at your armhole, you can start it at your bust, kind of wherever you want to play with it. The other nice thing about a Princess is depending on how wide it comes out here to this point and how narrow at your waist, it can make you look incredibly small at your waist, or, you know, lengthen your silhouette. So there's a lot of tricks that you can do with this style line. So I really like to do this. On this side, I've just done kind of a basic Princess. I'm also using the tape because if I want to change this, I can just rip it right off. So for our purposes here, I'm just going to put her on here, and then I'm just going to pin her on kind of all the way down so the tape will lay flat to the form. You can put your pins wherever you want to, really, at this point, but I would make sure that you're pinning at the underbust, otherwise your tape is going to stand away from the body. So, and then I'm just going to pop one in at the waist. And then you can kind of play with this. The nice thing about having this super soft foam and cover combination is that the style tape will want to grab it. So you can actually just move it around with your fingers pretty easily. So for example, if I needed to add a little bit more curve over here for something, you can just kind of push it, which is nice. Okay, so that is that. The next thing that I did, and you'll see this on the front and the back of my form, is I have marked my high hip point and my low hip point. So this is going to be super helpful for me if I'm doing pencil skirts or any kind of pocket placements, that kind of thing. So what I have done is from my waist tape, and I always measure from the very top of the tape, and then just keep that in my head when I do that, because that way if I happen to be doing some kind of flat patterning, I'm not going to run into any issues with seam placements or whatever if I know exactly where I'm measuring to and from. So I'm from the top of the tape here, I'm going to go down 4 inches, and I'm going to mark that at my center front here. That's my high hip. And then I'm going to go down 8 inches here. You can't really see, I've marked mine with 3 little pins. horizontally, just to give me kind of a reference on where that is. So I've marked it at my center front. I've done it at my front princess. I've done it at my side seams, my back princess, and my center back. So this way I'll have it all the way around as a really good reference point for, you can't really do bottoms on a dress form, but, again, for something like a pencil skirt, if I need to add in some darts or something, it's going to be super helpful to know kind of where those reference lines are. Okay, so I think that's about all on the front. Let me just give you 2 more high and low hips on the side over here. Okay, so again, from the top of the waist tape, I'm going to go down 4 inches and then 8 inches. The other measurement that you might want is your hip at the fullest point. Now, usually what this is you're measuring around your butt, kind of where it's the fullest, also going around over the very top of your front thigh, and this will typically be anywhere between 1 inch and 2 inches bigger than your low hip point. It's helpful for me. I don't know if you'll really want to do that, but if you do, now you know. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you my shoulder seam and my armholes. So for the shoulder seam, what I've noticed with me, because I am quite full on the chest and my cross shoulder is narrower than a standard size medium or an 8, I have a lot of balance issues with ready-to-wear garments, and they all typically tend to raise up and fall to the back. So what I'm going to do on my form is I'm going to mark the exact center of my shoulder here as my imagined shoulder seam, but then I'll know, because I kind of, as a professional, have taken these notes from, whatever, wearing garments for however long, and so I know that I always have this balance issue. So what I'm going to do is when I'm draping or when I'm using somebody else's pattern, I'll know that I'll have to go in and shift my shoulder seam forward a little bit, but this gives me a reference point for where it would sit traditionally, and then I can put it forward at 1/2 inch, 3/4, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm going to do that on this side with my trusty blue pins so you can see. So again, I would do this by eye because it's not a guarantee that the seam of the cover is going to sit exactly where you want it to be. So I find that the pins are super helpful for this. So I'm just going to go all the way down to basically where I imagine my cross shoulder point is. So you'll see on my form, and probably on yours as well, that the armhole in your cross shoulder is going to sit a little bit further in on the body than where your form actually ends. So I like this because if I'm going to be fitting some kind of a woven shirt or outerwear or something like that, or even a knit tee, this gives me a good reference point for how my body's going to sit in it and kind of where I want my sleeve head to be, or what's going to start happening with my sleeve. At some point, I'm going to get around to making her an arm and try to figure out how to attach that. But for now, I'm just going to mark my standard armhole. So for my cross shoulder point here, the way that I like to measure this is from bone to bone, and you can feel kind of like that ridge bone here on your cross shoulder, and then you kind of eye that on your form, and usually you can see kind of on your back body where that ends up being. If you need help to find it, an easy trick to do, use your natural waist trick. So put your hand here and bend, same concept as with your arm. Put your finger up here, and where your arm is bending, that's kind of like a good approximation of where your cross shoulder is. So mine ends, I think, about here on this side. Now again, and I think Allison has an excellent blog post about this, nobody's body is symmetrical. It's just not. And I think it can be a little bit sobering when you look at your form and see like, oh wow, that's so wild that my back actually kind of twists a little bit this way, or on me you can see that my shoulder here is higher and much more muscular on this side. I'm right-handed. I carry a purse on this side. I carry my babies on this side, so you can see it reflected in the form, which is super interesting, but also good because now with one of these forms, you can take your left and right shoulder slope measurements. You can adjust your armholes if one of your breasts is bigger than the other one. Those are super, super easy things that you can now fix on your own custom garments. So That said, I'm going to go ahead and pick out my armhole here with pins. So I start at the top here. I like to kind of give myself a guideline towards the back. I'm going to put a pin at the underarm here. I think this is about where it is. I'm kind of following the line that Nathan kindly cut, but also visually I feel like this is probably a good approximation of where I want my underarm to be. So then I'm just going to kind of follow my pins all the way around until I get a nice round shape. So you won't want this to be like a true just plain circle. You'll want to follow your body a little bit, but as you do this, it's going to make it much easier for you to adjust armholes on your patterns once you can start to see visually what it really looks like on your body, and you'll start to notice those shapes so you can kind of put them on your patterns yourselves, which is super, super amazing. This is such an excellent fit tool, this form. I'm so thrilled to be working on it. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing on the front, and I'm just going to kind of follow vertically down where I think this armhole shape looks like it wants to be. I say that and it sounds cryptic, doesn't it? It's just, it just comes with years of fitting and looking at people's armholes and very intently, which is also kind of creepy and weird that that's somebody's job. But basically, so this is where I'm putting my armhole here, and I'm going to bring it around bottom curve here. I'm kind of doing this on the side, so I might have to move this a little bit. Boom. Okay, so that is the armhole shape that I'm gonna use for now. We can always change this later if we need to. It's no problem. So that's done. What I want to show you now, before I move to the back, is my side seam trick. So here you'll see on my form especially, I am a little bit lazy, so you can definitely move the cover as much as you want to. I just, got super excited about this and started going at it, and now I don't want to take it off. So basically, you can see that the side seam of my cover kind of shifts forwards and backwards. So what I did here to give myself a good visual of a vertical seam at my side here, this is probably not necessarily something that I'm going to want to drape into, but it is really, really good tool for me if I need to check garment balance or my side seam placements, that kind of thing. So what I've done here is taken my trusty Beatrice Forms tape measure, pulled it out onto the top. Oh, I'm a little bit twisted here. So holding it at the top, at the center of my shoulder, just kind of drop a plumb line here. An old coworker once taught me this trick, and it is very, very useful. And then you can kind of just place your tape to give you a good vertical line here. So if you need to double check anything, you can easily do so. So one of the things that you can use this for, thank you old coworker, is if you're working with knits, you can check out the torque in your fabric. So nerd out there a little bit. All right, so I'm going to move to the back now. So here you can see, well, I hope you can see, I've already pinned out my neckline here and then my center back here. I've done the very same crazy thing on my back that I did on the front, so every inch I've put a pin to kind of, number one, hold my cover fabric in, and number two, to give me those visual guides. So if I need to do any placements, I'll know exactly where to do it. Okay, so for my neckline, again, I'm just going to follow the base of my neck and give myself a good neckline shape here. So what I am doing here is just bringing it all the way around, and then I'm going to stop at my center back, and this center back neck point is basically on your body where the top of your vertebrae is, sitting on top of that ball. That's like your back neck drop. So you'll see as you start to work on these forms that this is a really good reference point. And you'll see also that if you're having trouble with your garment balance, frequently it can be caused by how high or low your back neck drop is in conjunction with your shoulder slope and armhole. So those are all things that I would use to check, again, garment balance, which is, as we know, key for a well-fitting garment. Okay, so I'm going to finish my princess on the back. So because I just took a really big long strip and kind of laid it over, I can kind of just pull from where it is at the top, and I'll know that that line is going to match up. You can do this in 2 pieces. In fact, I did it in 2 pieces on this side, but it was such a pain to match up that I figured this way it was going to be a lot easier. So I'm just going to kind of pin her here. So typically when I have been draping and stuff in the past, I've been using a professional form, a wolf or an algodon, something like that, and those forms are usually always symmetrical. So I tend to default to fitting and draping everything on the right side of the form. But again, because this reflects me and all of my glorious asymmetry, I can take this opportunity to really kind of custom place where I want my princess seams to be, and visually, you know, like with things like having a larger chest, from side to side, it really helps visually to be able to do everything in the total package rather than doing it on one side and then mirroring your pattern pieces. So that looks pretty good to me. Later I'll go in and just double check and make sure that my seams look even from side to side. Okay. So then, again, for all you technical designers and pattern makers out there, I am doing my 5.5-inch down point for my high point. And this is going to give me my across back measurement, and I'll measure from armhole to armhole. And that's like a really good reference point for me when I'm doing flat patterning. So then, again, I'm going to do my high hip and low hip placements, starting at the center back, 4 inches down, and then 8 inches down. And then you can do this at your princess seams, and we do it at our side seams as well. So those are kind of the points that I would mark for myself. And then now that I have this all set up, and because this cover can come off and on, you can mark this if you want to. Permanent markers, washable markers, wash it all off. So kind of the option is up to you what you want to do with this. But I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I hope this has been helpful. I am going to get started sewing some things, and then I'll share my progress with you as I go. If you would like to follow Beatrice on Instagram, they are at Beatrice Forms, and I am as well at Lady Grift. Thank you very much for watching.